The quiet feeling of Friday night never expected that it would become the stage of inexplicable nightmares. As the streetlights faded and darkness enveloped the town, I, a 21-year-old pizza deliverman, began one last delivery. The winding and secluded road I had to traverse was not only a secret passage leading to an unpredictable place, but also opened the door into a world of obsession and insecurity, where things are not possible. Possible explanations become more present and terrifying than ever. Story 1: Hell's Door in the Dark Night. Late on a Friday night, as the night grew quiet and the lights in town began to dim, I, a 21-year-old pizza deliveryman, took on my final delivery assignment for a local restaurant, just in Socrates, a nearby town not far away, only about 15 minutes drive. It was a late shift, and as time passed, I only had an hour left before the end of my shift. By chance, the map led me to a deserted, remote road that I was unfamiliar with. This road curves like a secret passage and seems to lead nowhere. As I continued driving, suddenly the road opened up to a terrifying sight, a house on the edge of the water. Every light in the house is on, creating a brilliant and mysterious appearance. The sound of loud music echoed from inside, even though my windows were closed. In front of the house is a spacious lot, with only 2 cars parked in front, making me feel even more out of place. The house faces the water, and the driveway curves gradually toward the lakeshore as I get closer. As I approached the front door, the house looked newly built, with a shiny and full appearance. I pressed the doorbell a few times, but the loud music from inside made it impossible for me to hear the bell. When the door opened, I was overwhelmed by the image of 2 women standing before me. A blonde girl and a brown-haired girl, both wearing almost nothing, only thin and nonchalant outfits. They all smiled brightly and seductively, making me feel a bit out of place but also unable to help but feel aroused. The blonde quickly took the pizza from me, while the brunette gave me $20. Before I could ask about everyone in the house, the brown-haired girl called me cute and asked for my phone number. Meanwhile, I think I'm very lucky. After giving her my phone number, I hoped I would be invited to the party, but immediately the blonde girl dragged me inside. Stepping inside the house, a strange stench immediately entered my nose, a smell so unpleasant that I couldn't ignore it. The house was completely deserted, with no sign of anyone other than those 2 women. I didn't care much about that because of the charm from the 2 girls. They began to lead me upstairs, but when I set foot on the first step, a horrifying cry for help echoed from upstairs. That cry for help was sharp and desperate, making me feel cold and scared. When I looked up the stairs, I saw 2 women standing there, looking at each other with worried expressions. The blonde girl said something with a clarity and confusion that I couldn't make out, but from their expressions I sensed urgency and fear. In that moment, I hadn't really connected all the pieces of the situation, but my instincts told me I needed to leave immediately. I turned and staggered down the stairs and out, trying not to look at the heads appearing through the windows as I drove away. The feeling of being watched and the eyes of those heads seemed to penetrate my soul. I quickly called the police once I drove out of the area and asked them to check the house. Not long after, an investigator called back and told me that the house was a newly built vacant house for sale, and there was no sign of any parties that occurred that night. I wasn't very surprised to hear that, because the eerie silence of the house and the unusual things I had witnessed made me feel uneasy. The message from the police saying they knew where I worked made me decide to quit my job immediately. I changed my phone number and distanced myself from all contact with the incident, just to find peace in life again. So this was my last delivery, and I'm never going back to that place again. Story 2: Death Delivery, Night of Horrors at the Fallen House. On a dark night at Domino's Pizza, I received an order for pizza to be delivered to a house about 10 minutes drive from the store. When I arrived, I saw a note taped to the door, stating a strange request: "Pizza man, please bring the pizza in yourself and leave it in the upstairs bedroom. The money will be on the bed." Immediately, warning signals flashed in my head. I felt my anxiety rising and called my boss to express my concerns about the delivery into this house. My boss, who was used to unusual situations, advised me to go inside anyway. Even though I felt uneasy, I tried to convince my boss of the danger of this situation, but he insisted that I deliver the cake, not bring it home. The door was unlocked, and I decided to enter. The house, although medium-sized, appeared to have been out of repair for a long time, with old furniture showing signs of aging. A candle-shaped night lamp hanging on the wall created a weak light, just enough for me to see some of the space around me, but not enough to make me feel safe. The walkway up the stairs was dark, with only light from another small night lamp upstairs, making me feel more insecure. As I walked up the stairs, the tension and fear continued to increase. When I reached the end of the small upstairs hallway, I saw two doors, one open and one closed. The open door led into a dark room that I had to assume was a bedroom. Every step I take makes me feel like someone is watching me from the shadows. I felt cold and my arms and legs were shaking. I gently pushed the door open, pressed my hand against the wall to find the light switch. Even though I found the switch, when I turned it on, the light didn't work. The silence in the room increased my anxiety. I slowly walked towards the center of the room until my feet touched an obstacle, a bed. I put the pizza on the bed and started searching for the money in the dark. At that moment, a soft sound from outside the room made me raise my head, and my anxiety increased tenfold. And I managed to find the money and quickly wished to end this mission. When I found the money, which felt like 2 bills, I put them in my pocket and turned out of the room. I stood outside the room and saw the door of the other room open. The door was closed when I entered, and this change made me feel confused. I returned to the room, feeling something was wrong. In the dark, I tried to find the light switch again, but as I reached into the room, I felt a strong and painful pull gripping my arm. The pain spread and I was pulled into the room. I screamed and stabbed the attacker's hand with the key to escape his tight grip. After a struggle for survival, I finally broke free and ran back to my car. That night, no one followed me or chased me out. I told my boss about the terrible experience, and even though I convinced him to give me a raise for overcoming a horrifying situation, he didn't want me to call the police. Although I had no intention of contacting the authorities immediately, looking back, I realized that perhaps calling the police to check on that house had been a wise decision. Anyway, one positive thing is that my salary increased from $750 to $850. A little consolation for the horrifying experience I had to endure. Story 3: A frightful night at the shattered house. Encounters with scary people. Working at Gino's Pizzeria never included deliveries for me. Until one Tuesday night, an unexpected change happened. The new student was sick, and I was asked to take over the delivery job for the night. It was a fairly quiet night, which meant the delivery job wasn't very stressful. I drive a manual transmission 1998 Ford Mustang, an old but reliable car. With 3 normal deliveries in the first 3 hours, I felt the night might end soon. The bakery closes at 9 on weekdays, so I estimate there will probably only be 1 or 2 more orders overnight. When receiving a call from a customer, the voice on the phone sounded hoarse and slurred. It seemed like the caller was under the influence of meth or some stimulant. Her voice flickered each sentence with 10 seconds between sentences, making me feel uneasy. She orders a giant pizza and appears to be asking someone in the background for her address. After receiving the address, she hung up without informing us of the price or delivery time. I called my chef Mario and told him about the order. Mario, with unsurprising indifference, told me to deliver the cake as usual. 10 minutes later, I drove to the address where there was a long gravel road through the woods. The road was dark and remote, making me feel like I was lost in a deserted land. When I arrived at the house, I saw that it was a trailer house. The lights inside were off, but the orange glow from the kitchen fire behind cast a dim glow. I could hear a woman yelling at someone in the house. As I closed the car door and grabbed the pizza, I noticed the window curtains moving, and I felt someone was watching me. So I wasn't sure if I should knock on the door or go around to the back. There seemed to be many people there, so I decided to knock on the door first. The door opened, and I was faced with a horrifying sight: a woman and a man standing before me. They looked dirty and seemed like typical method addicts. The woman looked at me with suspicion and asked why I was there, while the man scolded her for giving me the address. They stood close to each other, as if trying to hide something ominous behind their backs. I asked if I should go around to the front to deliver the cake, but the woman pointed at me and asked me to wait there. She walked inside, leaving me standing awkwardly outside, trying not to stare at the creepy-looking man who I clearly felt was watching me. 2 minutes passed. The woman returned, stood next to the man, and gave him some money. They whispered something to each other, and I felt increasingly nervous. I felt as if they were secretly planning to rob me or do something bad. The man began to count the money very slowly, 1 coin at a time. Meanwhile, the woman looked behind me into the dark forest. She nodded and pointed behind me, and I saw a large man approaching with an axe in his hand. A feeling of fear spread, and I quickly threw the pizza box at the man in hopes of slowing him down. As expected, the man did not chase me, and I quickly returned to the car. When I got home, I couldn't go back to work. Mario, my chef, texted me to check in, and I told him about the incident. He only replied with a simple, "Oh my God," and had no further reaction. I feel lucky that it was just an unlucky night at work. And if you live in the suburbs or in remote places, you should definitely consider carefully before accepting delivery. Because of situations like that, this can happen at any time. As the ghostly figures of the night engulfed my mind in nightmares, I couldn't help but feel that there were things that should not be explored. From empty houses with strange sounds to strangers in remote houses, unusual situations brought me to the edge of panic. The chilling feelings and mysterious sounds never left my memory. And as the last light of the stars falls on lost paths, I know that there are secrets in the darkness that should never be discovered, for they could change your life forever.